BBC Surrey.
A design for a 5-metre-high steel sculpture of a bonfire on a roundabout on Guildford's Woodbridge Road will go before a planning committee tonight. It's to mark the Guildford Guy rioters who terrorised the town on bonfire night, more or less every year from 1820 to 1860. The idea has provoked some strong reaction. On Friday's show, we debated whether it should be built at all with local resident Bernard Park and the historian David Rose.
How can you celebrate a riot? We do dream of celebrating the Birmingham riots. This was the time of distress, sheer vandalism, when they had burning barrels of tar running down the high street. And on one occasion, they actually threw a policeman on the bonfire. Now, how can you honestly condemn, how can you honestly celebrate something in that way? Can you imagine that at ragtime at the university? It's a challenge. The chair up there, you'll be seeing people sitting up there.
We're going to have a very boring town.
Seeing,
what a boring place we're going to be if we refuse these things.
The local police don't want this. The neighbourhood inspector said this is exactly going to become, exactly as Mr. Park says, a target for students to be hanging things off.
Is it really? But we got
it's a challenge.
But Guildford's got a number of statues now. The George Abbott statue, the Surrey
he gets a handbag put on.
Yeah, they do. I know. I've seen an orange, a road cone on his head, but people take it off afterwards. But I think Guildford is growing with its public art, and I think it's going to be wonderful. And also, it is interesting that it is opposite the police station.
But
and I think it's not just to commemorate the violence, but the fact that the town got hold of the situation finally.
David Rose, the historian, before that Bernard Park. Well, to continue this debate, because I think this is going to become something of a landmark if it does happen, we're going to speak to Theresa Smith, who's the artist who designed this sculpture, and Gavin Morgan, the author of the book Guildford Guy Riots. Lovely to have you both in the studio this morning. Theresa, first of all, could you describe your sculpture for us, because this is, of course, radio. What will it look like if you have your way?
Okay, just to set the scene, the sculpture is going on the roundabout at the junction of Woodbridge Road and York Road, and it's a circular structure. It's 5 metres wide, 5 metres high, and it's made of 150 steel rods. Basically, it looks like a circular guardrail that you'd find on any pavement in any town in England.
Do you know what it reminds me of? Have you ever played the game Mousetrap?
Yes.
It looks like the cage that you finally trap the mouse in, except 5 metres high with a chair on top.
Actually, yes, I see what you mean. But just to kind of give it a little bit more context, as the railing grows up into the sky, the steel rods turn into these sinuous flames, and atop of the flames is an empty chair. And so what we have here is a classic November the 5th bonfire structure with a seat for the guy.
And in terms of the significance of the Guildford Guy riots and why they should be commemorated in this way, Gavin, you're the person, I guess, to answer that question.
Well, yes, I mean, we all get very excited about the actual riots because we don't have many big events in Guildford's history. But when I wrote the book about it, I mean, I was fascinated about the riots illustrate the emergence of Guildford into the town we see today. And it's much more than the riots. I mean, this is a sculpture of a bonfire, and the bonfire in the Guildford High Street was the biggest community event in Guildford in the 19th century. I mean, people came in, this is the time of Dickens and Hardy. People came in from all the villages and they had let off fireworks in the high street. And it may seem mad to us, but that's the way things were then. And of course today we come to the high street for Christmas and have fireworks for Father Christmas, and we still have a torchlit procession. So there's continuity as a big community event. But what happened was that people moved into the town when the railways came, and the middle class people moved in. They said, well, we can't have this going on in our high street. So they stamped it out, and that's where the riots came from. And Guildford did become notorious. I mean, the army was called in. But basically, when people got rid of the riots, they then sort of thought, well, we're a very respectable town now. And that's become very much our culture of Guildford, very, very polite.
Well, in many ways, Guildford's a national joke. It's a byword for middle-class respectability, isn't it? So what is the aim, then, of this sculpture? Is it to give a little bit of edge back to Guildford?
Well, the sculpture is really, it's a celebration of the fun that was had in Guildford at the time of the guys' heyday. Really, prior to the riots becoming an issue at all, we've got to remember that this was the best. This was the best party of the year, and there was a lot of joy to be had. And today,
but Bernard said, I mean, policemen were thrown on bonfires. It was a lawless episode.
I mean, this is
they weren't.
Oh, right,
that's a myth.
Oh, it's a myth.
Yes,
is it?
that's a myth.
Well, you wrote the book. You should know.
And so it's a part of the story. But I want to just remind people of how good the times were. But of course, it's only part of the story. And so the Guys is a moment in time that mirrors a great shift in culture for Guildford. And so in another way, the bonfire, the flames also symbolise a re-emergence of a new culture and a new society in Guildford.
Gavin, aesthetically, and don't feel you have to be polite because the sculpture's sitting next to you within striking distance, I want to point out. Do you think aesthetically it works?
Yes, I love the idea that it's on a roundabout, and as you go round the roundabout, the flames, you get this sort of flickering effect. And I think I get the idea that it sort of emerges out of railings. It sort of starts at the bottom as railings and then merges into the fireworks. So yeah, I do. But I think I'm a historian, so I see the sort of significance of it as, I like to think that people will see that and think, oh, what on earth's that about? And then they will think about it a bit more and ask people, and then they'll sort of engage with the town's history and its identity. That's what interests me.
And
well,
is there a penny
to kind of pique curiosity and get people inquiring? I mean, already it started already just through these your interviews and the
2 debates in 4 days on BBC Surrey. You're not doing too badly.
The ball is already really rolling, which is exactly what we want. We want to get people curious about local history, get them engaged, and start to get them excited about it.
Is there any penny of taxpayers' money being put forward to erect this?
It's being funded by Electronic Arts.
Who, that games company I mentioned earlier?
The games company down in Onslow Street. So it's part of their planning agreement with Guildford. So it's not public money.
Well, we'll see what happens at the meeting tonight, and then I have no doubt that we'll be speaking to you again in the near future if it does get the go-ahead. Thank you very much indeed for coming on. That's Theresa Smith from the company Mooch, who designed this sculpture. Gavin Morgan, the author of the book Guildford Guy Riots. Go buy it if you want to find out more about Guildford's history. It's 8:31.